A sympathy card received by my sister Ginny said, "Your father was a strong, devoted, eloquent, and committed gentleman. Not many of those left. He was all that and more." Dad enjoyed life, all of it. Even the tough times which he was willing to experience because they're part of being alive. And he had so much in life to enjoy. A loving and active family, full of wife Sharon, daughters, nieces and nephews, sons-in-law, grandchildren, great-grandchildren, and assorted dogs and cats. Plenty of time on the St. Croix River, lots of world travel, a meaningful professional career, and important volunteerism. He loved Hershey's Kisses, which is why there's some on your table. He loved the New York Times crossword puzzle, Moby Dick, Edgar Allan Poe, the comic strip Zippy, and music. His wish was to experience the experience, and he certainly did just that. Now, kids don't always see the value in some experiences. For example, Dad loved to go for rambling drives, turning down any random dirt road to find out where it went, despite our backseat cries of dismay. He did much of his sightseeing while driving, which was unnerving to those who rode with him. His pattern, regardless of how steep or winding the road, was to have his foot on the accelerator with his head turned to the side so he could see. My sisters and I would sit wide-eyed and silent, trying not to look past the edge of the road. We did a lot of camping, and Dad read aloud to us at night. Sometimes Grimm's fairy tales, you know, the ones with gore and violence. Sometimes Ray Bradbury stories, like the one in which the children have lions eat their parents. He would pause while reading, comment on how the tale was really dark, and then speculate on the author's states of mind. Camping with Dad also included rigorous hiking outings, long hikes with little carried. For example, not much water. If you expressed your thirst, Dad would tell you to eat a prune and suck on the pit. If you do that, he told me, you won't be thirsty. So I dutifully ate the prune and sucked on the pit, but I still felt thirsty. My sisters remember hiking on an especially steep, crumbly slope. They describe everyone scrambling and scrabbling with an unpleasant slide down a long ways, a distinct possibility. They reached the other side, breathless and relieved. Dad allowed us how it was an exciting stretch, but he was unruffled. Dad was also willing to experience things in which he wasn't terribly interested. For example, he would take us horseback riding for long trail rides. We were thrilled every time, and for days afterwards we would talk about our horses and their apparent personalities, pros and cons. Well, Dad would not only not recall details, but would refer to his horse as a nag as he rubbed his sore backside. It never mattered what season it was, Dad loved them all. His sturdy wool pants kept him warm for probably 40 years. He never saw the need to replace them as they still fulfilled their basic function. He loved the river in winter and liked to check the thickness of the ice. Unfortunately, his method of doing this was to walk out until the ice started to break. I remember watching and calling out that the water was open in the middle. One year, as he walked out, I heard cracking. I saw his shoulders drop down and he was through the ice. I thought, this is it, I'm losing my dad. Luckily, the river was not even thigh deep at that point. He climbed back out, walked back to shore, and said, "Wow, that's pretty cold." Despite Dad's easygoing nature, he was a perfectionist in some areas. He completed the New York Times crossword in ink, even remembering enough Latin to get all those clues. He took great pride in his river property and worked hard maintaining it. He especially loved using his chainsaw and did so into his 80s, despite our worries. He told his doctors he wished he could get back to that. We all remember how hard he studied when he was in law school. He would be in his great-uncle's library at the river, poring over those massive tomes. Once an attorney, he would spend hours tweaking his writing to get a legal brief just right. Dad also had a great sense of fun. Of course, there were a lot of hospital stays and doctor appointments in the past couple of years, and Dad dealt with most of it with his usual stoicism, grace, and humor. One day, Katie was with him as he came out of an appointment with his regular doctor. He, with his walker, slowly shuffled across a large, silent waiting room full of strangers, pretending they were looking at their magazines or their phones and not his painful progress. He stopped and looked at everyone, and they all looked up. "See," he announced, "you have to be careful, because this is what they do to you back there." Another time we were waiting in a long pharmacy line. A young woman ahead of us had letters on her shirt. Dad said, "What's that you got on your shirt?" She said, "It's WWRBGD." Dad said, "What's that?" She explained, "It's what would Ruth Bader Ginsburg do." "Do you know who she is?" Dad said, "Yes." She said, "Well, it's what would Ruth Bader Ginsburg do?" Dad paused and said, "Well, I hope she'd go on living." Dad was an honest man, and he was good at calling out trendy nonsense. When I had my first grown-up job, I attended a conference which laid the groundwork for an upcoming project. As I described it to Dad, he asked how one particularly challenging portion would be handled. I told him, "Failure is not an option." I had been hearing that throughout the conference. He laughed and said, "Of course failure is an option. It's always an option and sometimes a probability. The point is, what will you do when something fails? What's the backup plan?" Those words have helped me a lot throughout my life, not to mention the lesson of questioning a trendy catchphrase. Dad loved all 5 of his daughters unconditionally. We all felt that. Aside from some unfiltered comments like, "Why do you suppose you're so dumb in math?" His support and love for us never wavered. He listened to us, laughed with us, and sat in silence with us. My sisters and I were on the river recently. The water was low, and we were navigating a tricky stretch at slow speed. We recalled that Dad didn't slow the boat for tricky areas. He kept right on cruising with confidence. We all agreed he really knew the river. And someone said, maybe the river knew him. And when I watch his children, grandchildren, great-grandchildren, enjoying the river and experiencing their experiences. I know that my dad will live on. And for that, I am forever grateful.
All right, our next person is going to be Randy Farron. And after that, we'll have Steve Thorne, Kathy Wallace, Kathy Lewis, am I good? And then me. So I just wanted to cue them all about when they'll be coming up, because I won't come up and introduce next time, so you just have to be ready to follow. So thanks.
That's going to be hard to follow. Good afternoon, my name is Randy Farron, as Merritt said.
A little louder.
I'm sure there are many in the room that knew Bill much better than I did, so I'm very honored and humbled to be asked to come up here and speak a few words about Bill. To put it simply, Bill was and will always be one of my St. Croix River heroes. He was also an influential mentor to me, even though he probably never knew it. My wife Kathy and I came to the St. Croix River in 1994 when I accepted a job with the Park Service in the position of Chief of Natural Resources for the St. Croix National Scenic Riverway. I can't remember exactly when I first met Bill, but I could bet money that it was at a meeting concerning the St. Croix River. My first impression of Bill was, who is this curmudgeon? He asked such intelligent, thought-provoking questions in such a humble manner, and always with a smile and a twinkle in his eyes. I loved his style of statesmanship, and I'm sure you all have good memories of that style. He told it like it was, but so diplomatically. He often attended scientific meetings about St. Croix River issues and would stump scientists with his questions. Honestly, for several years, I never even knew he was an attorney. I didn't know his background was environmental law, and he was a distinguished attorney. He didn't wear his attorney badge on his sleeve, but he was more than willing to share his attorney skills whenever asked. I had the pleasure of working with Bill on the board of the St. Croix River Association, which he was instrumental in transforming to its present level of excellence. He worked tirelessly on the bylaws for that new organization. I served with him as a trustee for the Standing Cedars Community Land Conservancy. Several former members are here, which he was active in forming. We worked together on the St. Croix Conservation Collaborative, which he played a huge role in establishing, and he was a key player in putting together a comprehensive list of potential land protection projects along the St. Croix and Namakagon rivers. Several of those projects have been completed and the land protected forever. For many years, he served as a citizen representative on the St. Croix Basin Water Resource Planning Team, and he provided wonderful insight and asked pointed questions. He faithfully stepped up to serve in leadership roles in the organizations I served with him on. He worked hard on land use issues in the St. Croix Valley, especially in the beloved Scandia. He was an inspiration to me and to many river stewards, and he left his fingerprints and his legacy on many things. As you can imagine, because of my job, I got out on the Namakagon and St. Croix rivers a lot, and also because of my passion for the rivers. One of my most memorable river trips was with Bill at the helm of their pontoon boat. He hosted a St. Croix River Association board meeting at their river house, and afterwards took 6 or 7 of us out on the river. It was mid-September, pretty cool, and we motored upstream to Cedar Bend. That's the picture behind me right there. Suddenly the motor died. And Bill tried and tried to start it. And then he finally shrugged his shoulders and says, I guess nobody filled up the gas tank. It was just his man dealing with things. He never got shook up about anything. Luckily, there was a small gas can stored on board, and we completed our journey. Now I'm going to go off script. Bill and I never disagreed on anything, and it's because we were kindred spirits, and because he was such a convincing conversationalist. To Sharon, Nancy, Jenny, Becky, Katie, Mary, and your families, please accept my deepest sympathies. You and the world, especially the St. Croix Valley, lost a great man. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. My name is Steve Thorne. I've known Bill for a long time. We've been friends for all of that time. Bill's name, Augustus Wilson Platt III, had a certain dignity and gravitas that you'd expect from a member of one of the oldest and most respected families in St. Paul. But no one ever knew him by that name. People that were his friends from his first half of his life tended to call him Gus. And those of us who met him in his second act as an attorney tended to call him Bill. And those nicknames were a lot more descriptive of the unpretentious, low-key, wily, funny, good-hearted, generous, and quietly competent gentleman that I know. As I said, I first met Bill in the early 70s when we were classmates at the University of Minnesota Law School. We both graduated in 1973. And we both joined the Attorney General's office under Warren Spanish that same year. Along with a number, I see a number of people who look a lot older than they did in 1970. But I can still recognize them, those that I can see anyway. So we were friends and colleagues for nearly 50 years. And that's a long time in an age when loyalties and relationships seem to be increasingly transactional and temporary. Bill kept his friends. I know a lot of you here are friends from childhood, from St. Paul Academy. A lot of us are here from the Attorney General's office and the Department of Natural Resources. And all of us felt very close to Bill and treasured his advice and his friendship and his good humor. He was always a steadfast advocate for protecting all of Minnesota's water resources, our lakes, our streams, our wetlands, and groundwater. But he was most passionate about the St. Croix River, where he was well-known and respected by generations of National Park Service managers, boundary area commission members, local government leaders, and everyone associated with the St. Croix River Association and a number of other organizations that you've heard something about by previous speakers. He and Sharon also provided significant ongoing support to environmental organizations such as the Minnesota Center for Environmental Advocacy, where their daughter, Merritt, following his example, later served as board member for several years. My most enduring memories of my friend Bill are of him in shorts, t-shirt, old ratty cap, bare feet, with a martini, captaining his old pontoon boat on the St. Croix, or sitting on his cabin porch. By the way, the cabin porch that I think, the finest cabin porch probably in North America, certainly in Minnesota, Wisconsin. But that's how I remember it. Sitting surrounded by family and by friends, enjoying each other's company and the beautiful St. Croix River Valley. He was a true river rat, as people have pointed out. I mean, that's sort of a well-known term on the St. Croix. The old timers knew where the river rats were, the people that fished and boated and hunted and lived most of their life down the river. And Bill is of that fraternity, I think. He enriched my life and many others. He lived a good, productive life that made a difference, and I mean a real difference, as you've heard a number of examples here. I consider myself lucky to have known him and been able to have been his friend. Thank you.
You'll forgive me, I was a little discombobulated. We only have one Kathy speaking today, not two Kathys. So next, we'd like to have Kathy to share a few words. And I think I told her to sit at the opposite end of the room by mistake. Oh, no, she's right there. Perfect. Come on up.
I was supposed to be down there, I thought, but this is where I am.
Right, you knew. You knew I was wrong. Here you go.
Please let me know if you cannot hear. There's nothing more annoying from my own experience. My name is Kathy Lewis. Bill Clapp and my husband, Piers Lewis, have known each other most of their lives. They grew up next door to each other in St. Paul, went to the same high school, and spent every summer on the St. Croix in family cabins less than half a mile apart. After high school graduation, their lives took separate trajectories until more than 20 years later, they came back, Bill from the west coast and Piers from the east, to the very same block in St. Paul where they had started out. In the past 45 years, they have never lived more than about half a mile apart by chance. When I first heard about the St. Croix River, and I did not grow up in Minnesota, it was referred to as the river. And I said, "What do you mean, the river?" The Mississippi, the Connecticut, which I really love, the Euphrates. And when I saw towels decorated with the words, "the river," I could hardly believe I had never heard of the St. Croix. And I said, "How can there be the river?" Well, I've learned about it since a lot. And I wanted to read something from The Wind and the Willows about the river, where Mole says, "So this is a river," which is about what I said when I saw the St. Croix River. I said, "That is a river? That is the river?" Okay. The river, corrected the rat, not a river. And you really live by the river? What a jolly life. By it, and with it, and on it, and in it, said the rat. It's brother and sister to me, and aunts and company, and food and drink, and naturally, washing. It's my world, and I don't want any other. What it hasn't got is not worth having. And what it doesn't know is not worth doing, is not worth knowing. Lord, the times we've had together. Well, that made me think very differently about the St. Croix over the years, having spent many, many, like 40 plus summers on it. I get the picture. It's a fine place, and it is the river. In fact, when I talk to my friends who don't live around here, and I talk about the river, they say, what river are you talking about? And they start all over again. I said, forget the Euphrates. So I thought I would end by reading a poem that I wrote about the river toward the end of its season, you might say, when the late fall season involving the St. Croix. It's called "The Valley Narrows Down," and I'll show you how long it is, because when people read poems, you never know whether you need to start listening at the beginning. Or you start, you might be encouraged to pay more attention if it was short. And otherwise, you might think, whatever. Right, it's called "The Valley Narrows Down." The valley narrows down with record speed. Trees shatter into the water. Few try the river now. Boats tarnish in the grass. Those people who smiled across the summer lawns are gone, trapped in home movies to another state. The river moves by, a rerun, stripped of its images. Soon it will grip the shore and stiffen like white winter laundry, frozen to the shape of the wind. Under the boats, a ghost of life goes on, and up on the bank, the maple holds a pine in its arms. That's it.
Thank you, everyone, for what you've said. I'm going to share a few words now. First, thank you all for being here. It means so much to our family. And Dad would have been just tickled to know that you all are here. My mother thanks you as well. She couldn't bear coming today as she struggles to find a manageable path for mourning. My mother asked that I share a message with you in her absence. She thought of many things to say in contemplating being here today, but chose a few direct words, just as my father often did. She said, "It hasn't taken hold of my heart and my head yet that it took 25 minutes to lose my husband, my lover, and my best friend." They were married for 54 years. So I just want to quickly share with you my dad's passing, because many people wonder, what happened? He was a vibrant man, and suddenly we hear he's gone. And it's about the 25 minutes. So my dad was enjoying a beautiful morning at the cabin, and I guess he fell. I don't know if he fell off a chair or was walking, but he fell and he hit his head. And my mom said he got back up and said he was okay and got into a chair, but she called me, we live next door, and she said, "Come on over and check on him." So I went over and I brought over a scone, and he was sitting in the chair, and I said, "Good morning, I brought you a scone." And he said, "Okay." I said, "You want milk with it?" "Sure." And he's like, "So why'd you come over?" And I said, "Well, to bring you the scone, but Mom actually called and said she was worried about you because you'd fallen. And are you okay?" And he said, "Yeah, I'm okay. My head hurts, but I'm okay." I said, "Great." So I got him the scone and the milk, and he started drinking it. And I gave him his New York Times, and he started reading it. And I said, "Are you good?" And he said, "Yeah, the scone is really delicious. Thank you very much." And so I headed back to my cabin and thought all was well. Well, my mom called about a half an hour later and said, "Something's wrong with your dad." So this time, I went back with my daughter Maya, who had spent the summer at Regions working with people, trying to assess how they were doing. And when we got there, he was sort of slumped in his chair with his head down. And he was a little bit responsive, but sort of limited. So we right away called 911. And over the course of the next 25 minutes, until they put him in the ambulance, he slowly faded from us. It turned out he'd had bleeding on the brain, and it just shut down his systems. So it was like he was falling asleep slowly. When someone's in bed next to you and you're talking to them and they talk to you, and then they're kind of getting sleepy and their answers are shorter, and then they just really drift off. It was like that with him. He just drifted off in front of us. And they put him in the ambulance, and they took him off, and they said his heart stopped beating in the ambulance. So that was the 25 minutes, but it was peaceful. And he died still having a great morning and a good life. And I'm so happy for him that that happened. So I'm going to share just a couple things. Dad is a man who you've heard who spoke volumes with a handful of carefully selected words that came to him quickly in an instant with a sharp mind. He was authentic and unsparingly honest, as we've heard. When I gave him the news that I broke up with my boyfriend of 3 years, that he didn't care for at all, he looked at me earnestly and said, "I'm sad that you're sad," which clearly meant he was really glad the guy was gone. But then he was sad for me. We never said "I love you" in our household when I was growing up. It was understood with actions of time spent with me, good conversations, laughs, and singing to me each night when he tucked me in. Blue Moon was our favorite. At some point in my 30s, my mom decided they should be more forthcoming about their feelings. So one day when I'm at their house, my dad comes up to me and says, "Mom wanted me to tell you." Mom wanted me to tell you that I love you. And I hear my mom from the other room, "Bill, you weren't supposed to say it like that." It was okay though. I always knew he loved me. So we heard a lot about the St. Croix, and it was Dad's sole place. Whatever was happening in his life, time on the river could wash away the worries, the busy mind, the nonsense of life. It restored his being and his passion for the earth and the world. From the time he was a young boy, he spent summers on the St. Croix River. He swam, fished, explored the sloughs and the back channels. He always knew where the deadheads were, and the old rock dams, and where the shallow sandbars were, and could navigate the channels as deftly as anyone. When I was a kid, we'd be on the river every weekend and some weeknights after work for a picnic on the sandbar, followed by a float downriver in the pontoon as the dusk made way to stars. The bats swooped over our heads eating bugs, and the beavers slipped into the water as we passed. Once my dad and I slept in sleeping bags overnight on the pontoon anchored in the middle of the river to watch the Perseid meteor showers. Never one to be daunted by weather, he'd often have us stay at the beach as ominous clouds gathered. As the rain began and the thunder rumbled, he'd finally relent to our pleas and slowly board the boat and take the helm. We'd blaze down the river toward home, the pontoon and its passengers stung by pelting rain, relentless wind, and lightning all around us. It never fazed him. He loved all times of day on the water, rain or shine, cold or hot, busy or quiet. He liked canoe, motorboat, pontoon, whatever could bring him on the river and serve his purpose for the day. Dad was a river rat of the finest order. It's hard to lose a parent, but I'm so grateful he lived a long and rich life and died so quickly. We read his health directive after his death, and it was so much who he was, and it brought us a sense of peace. I'm just going to share a couple excerpts. My father: "I enjoy life. The most annoying thing about not being able to live forever is being deprived of knowing how it all comes out. I want to keep going so long as I am able to absorb and understand what is going on and communicate my thoughts about it." And this next paragraph's for the attorneys in the room who knew him. "As for pain control, who needs pain? Use pain control even if it shortens my life, so long as the conditions that trigger withholding help per the preceding paragraph or as described in the following paragraph are present." vegetabilized, then whatever can be done to speed me on my way should be done. There is no point in keeping me alive when it means nothing to me. I have no spirituality. I have no religion. My spirituality is loving life. I'm glad to be alive. I'm willing to tough it out in the bad times because of the experience of life. My father lived a wonderful life and got to die living the experience of life to his final moments. Thank you all for being here. It means so much to all of us. Oh, I already said that part. Oh, I just want to close and say that since my mother couldn't be here, some of you might have wanted to share, some thoughts with her, some memories. So if you have those, I would really encourage you to send her a card. She said to me that she was going to start opening the cards that have been sent to her today while we're here. And she thought Dad was just the best man in the world, and she loves when people write cards and sort of affirm that that's true. And share stories. So please send her cards, and at some point she'll get her courage and her strength, and she'll come back out, and your cards will mean a lot to her in the meantime. So thank you all very much. That's it. Enjoy the